Pull up, grab the fuel nozzle, and get ready to fuel up on trends and strategies to grow your travel center business in this episode of The Truck Stops Here, brought to you by NATSO. Now, here's your host, Amy Toner.
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of The Truck Stops Here. I'm your host, Amy Toner, and I have Mr. Darren Schulte with me. Hey, Darren.
Hey, Amy. How are you?
Good. You are listening to The Truck Stops Here, the NATSO Foundation's podcast. The NATSO Foundation is the research, education, and public outreach subsidiary of NATSO. As surely all of our listeners know, Darren Schulte is our Vice President of Membership, who's been with NATSO for many years, and he has more than 3 decades of experience in truck stops and travel plaza operations and merchandising, and he visits truck stops all the time, and he always attends the International Study Tour with NACS. And I was going to start by, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about international, what you saw, but I thought I'd just start by asking you, why do you go to that? Why do you attend the International Study Tour?
Good question. So I have to, this is an interesting thing that you know, but our listeners don't. Mm-hmm. When I was first asked to go, I screamed like a baby, like, why Europe? And I didn't understand it. So, the budget that I have to manage it as best I can. And I thought to myself, why am I going to Europe? And what the heck am I going to see over there? And travel centers, truck stops, convenient. We lead the world. We're the best, and we know what's going on. And 11 years later, except for obviously COVID, I was wrong, and I've been shocked how much I've been able to see and learn over there. And I highly recommend it for our members to attend at least one. And it's not cheap, but members like Dan Alsecker comes frequently. The Heinz family comes frequently. Robin, and we have other members. Bobby Burke-Stresser, of course, who's passed, but he was a fan of going over there. It's quite incredible what you see and learn over there, what they're doing well, what we're doing well and they're not doing. Right. More importantly, what you can see over there and what you can take back. And it's the trends that you see over there. And I wouldn't call it a trend. That's wrong. The things that they're doing over there often, at least in these last 11 years, become trends over here. And you kind of see things happening over there before they end up happening here in the U.S. So it gives you an opportunity to be on the forefront of change. And
this year you went to Ireland, right?
Yes, we were in Ireland, and NACS has been doing a really nice job of I would say, looking at not only convenience store operators within the city and other retail operators, but really now focusing on the travel centers. So we had an opportunity to see quite a few of what they call motorways over there, motorway operators. And they've done that in Poland and did it in Norway and some other places. And it's really, again, eye-opening for our members who attend with us to see those operations on the interstates.
You sent me a bunch of photos and they were all gorgeous.
Yes. Yeah. You know what? Certainly some of the times when you see some of the things like in Ireland, the food focus is incredible.
Yeah.
And, the members who attended with us referenced like, wow, we couldn't get away with being able to have our food out in the open like this. They wouldn't allow that with a particular food safety inspector or something like that. However, from the big picture, they've all said that this is something that, is something that we need to really embrace. When we say we're in the food business, we are, but when maybe with the exception of KT, when you go to a KT, they're in the food business. And again, there's some other operators out there for sure. But when you're in the travel centers in Ireland, they're in the food business. You are right when you walk in, you are impacted by incredible food offerings, whether it be fresh pastries that you can grab with no sneeze guards on them, or meats and cheeses in open cases, or with fresh made bread or tomatoes on vines still, and grapes and strawberries and all sorts of stuff. That it's not that we don't sell those items, but the presentation is significant, and it's no wonder why they have traditionally significantly higher conversion rates than we do from their forecourt, from their diesel islands into the stores where people are actually purchasing something, because it's hard not to buy something in there.
Yeah.
And somebody may say, well, you're an American and you're traveling. But when you just look at the food theater, when you walk into those stores, and it's literally like it's food theater. It's food for the eyes. It's hard not to spend money.
It seemed to me almost like I always talk about Whole Foods. It had that feel, right? Like very interactive and fresh and like full and organized. Is that what it felt like for you?
Yeah, certainly, like any store visit, people are prepared for you, right? So
yeah, sure.
Staff but you were spot on. The feeling is, again, it's like you're walking into a food service establishment.
Yeah.
That happens to have other items in their travel center, and they happen to sell fuel. It is really, it's easy to forget you're in a travel center.
Were the footprints big or small?
What's that?
Were the footprints big or small?
The travel centers were relatively large, and the one that we stopped at Junction 14, I think it was certainly a travel center that was as large as most of our travel centers in the United States. They had a Mexican food restaurant. They had crepes in there. They had an ice cream program. They had a really robust grab-and-go food program themselves. Many of them have Burger Kings in them. They had East Asian food. They had Asian food. So they had like a lot of different proprietary as well as other QSR programs. And they're very similar to the United States market. In fact, I would say that I found Ireland to be the most of all the European trips I've made to be the most like the American market. Not a lot of EVs, not a lot of activity right now in the EV market in Ireland. And again, trucks and cars shopping at their locations, coming in and participating in the multiple food offerings and so forth. And as I've kind of referenced in the past, I do think for a lot of our members who really want to understand like price optimization, through the use of digital shelf tags or price optimization, if you're not using that, can learn from these European study tours. Also, SKU management. And you heard me say this before. I just think the European operators do a really, really good job with having a lot of the items that sell. Right? Okay. You go into there and someone may say, it's because, Darren, their sets are smaller. They have smaller footprints. But I don't see that as a negative, because I see that as an opportunity to really focus on what's really selling. You don't go in there and they have every single type of Snickers or every single type of Reese's or every single type of Coca-Cola or Pepsi on the market. They're really focused on what are the best-selling items, and they make sure they have plenty of that. And you think through that from a stocking standpoint, a staffing issue, all of those things are just, I think, really well thought out and smart about it.
When you were telling me about the trip, one thing that you said really struck out with you was that they had a really good customer experience. Does that include that, or what else is that? Yeah,
I thought, again, understanding that they know we're coming, but throughout the European store visits, I'm always impressed with the customer experience piece. I do think there is a lot of focus on moving people very, very quickly. I think they do that through their store layouts and through their offerings. I think, a focus on speed is really important. That doesn't mean that the European or in this case, the Irish customer doesn't sit down and have a meal and so forth. But it just seems to be that there's a big, big focus on the customer experience, making sure the customer feels, welcomed, literally like rolling out a carpet. You don't go into a travel center in Europe and they don't have flowers out front. Mm-hmm. And the focus on cleanliness is, again, not that our operators are not clean, mm-hmm. but the focus on cleanliness is just very, very significant. When we're over there with operators, we like to look in the corners to see whether or not they're really dusting and doing those types of things, things that might get hidden because it's preparation for a store tour. And you just don't see that stuff in the vast majority of those operations. Are just very, very clean. And again, it's very visual pleasing as well.
Yeah.
I don't find them, even in the smaller locations, to be packed and unshoppable. They seem to be incredibly female friendly. It seems to be a big focus on those customers of really thinking about how families move in and out of their stores, how the female customer does. So yeah, it's a good experience.
Sometimes I think, because I've traveled to Europe a lot, is that they are more focused on the tourist. And so they're trying to impress people that are coming in. They're trying to like make an experience for people who come in from out of town. And I can see how that would be a good philosophy to take for your business, rather than just thinking of yourself as like, oh, people are in and out, it doesn't matter. But you're like, you're looking to people as your tourist customers,
That's one of the most amazing comments I've heard, Amy, because that is seriously, that's amazing, because it just hit me like a brick. You're exactly right, because when you think of Disneyland, right, they're really trying to impress people. Mm-hmm. And if you took that kind of approach, your locals would benefit from it as well, right? Yeah. And that's a really, really amazing experience, because I believe there's 5 million some odd people in Ireland, and I believe they have like 10 million visitors annually. So they're all about certainly impressing the tourists, as you reference, and that makes total sense. And then your local regular customers get that benefit from it.
Absolutely. Sure. What about, okay, I might be totally out there with this comment, but I've been looking at these photos from the International Study Tour for the last decade, and the canopies are always so much better. The experience outside is like so much more interesting and visually attractive. Why don't we do that here?
I have no earthly idea. Okay. I mean, really, maybe other than Wawa and Rudders, which are really cool things with canopies, we're kind of stale and weird. And you've heard me say this before. A lot of times, with the exceptions of the C-store operators who are moving into our space, who really do a nice job in the forecourt, driving customers into the stores, no one does a very good job on the backcourt, which is sad. That's a whole nother, podcast of why we don't treat the professional driver with the same respect related to coming in the store and spending money as we do the forecourt. But definitely the canopies, you see all sorts of different canopies, whether it's with plexiglass or light being let through, supported by flowers and things like that. Very similar to what Bobby Bergstresser did out there at his location. He had older canopies. He would put tons of flowers and so forth. But yeah, there's curved canopies and and it's so much different. And again, to me, if you really are seriously about trying to drive that customer inside to the store and spend money and not just use your restroom, I think that has to be a thought process. And again, I'm not saying spend tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars on your canopies just to make it look different, but we all do a square, and it's always usually an ugly square. And it's weird. I don't know why we don't do better canopies.
I mean, I'm sure it's more expensive. I just feel like it's more inviting and more visually interesting.
I would just to support your statement is we do spend money on other things quite a bit. And whether or not those have the same return on investment, who knows, right? But we do a lot of strange things like that where we'll invest a lot of money in a particular area. Having a welcoming backcourt and a welcoming forecourt and something that is different, I have to believe you would have some sort of return on that. So.
Okay, and the last thing you wanted to talk about was speed. Tell me more about that.
So, for years, they've been embracing automated retail as well as self-checkout, So certainly Pilot, I believe, at least in our space, was a pioneer of self-checkout. They've had it for quite a long time. But the rest of our industry, for the most part, has kind of been slow to, move into that space. And again, I'm sure a lot of that had to do with the cost and so forth. But in Europe, whether it be self-checkout, whether it be the ability to check out on your phone or the ability to use a scanner and go through the store and check yourself out, as well as automated retail, has really, really been embraced fully throughout the European travel centers and C-stores. And that is something, our industry is, I wouldn't say slowly, but kind of quickly moving into. And the speed is very, very noticeable over there. If one of the things that I'll just highlight, like in Ireland, which I found really fantastic, is the number of different types of coffee programs some of them have in their stores. You'll walk into their store and they'll have a drip program, essentially someone who just wants to get in and get a cup of coffee really, really quickly. They have baristas inside their stores with a drip program. And then they might have an automated retail program, maybe their Costa coffee or one of their other programs, and they'll have bean to cup. So, and I'm not suggesting that every one of our members should do something like this, but what I am suggesting or stating is that's a really a good understanding of our customers, that they are very, very different customers. We have members that will have a QSR program, and let's say it's a sandwich program. It might be a proprietary program, but they won't have any packaged sandwiches in their cold vault, reaching cold vaults, because they're like, oh, that's going to stop a customer from going to the hot box or something, or standing in line. And I think those kind of things show a lack of understanding of our customers. While I believe retail redundancies are problematic, I don't see that to be the case in food. So for someone who wants a quick cup of coffee, he or she goes to the drip, off they go. If they want a more expensive coffee, maybe they go to the barista, for example. And I think we should really kind of embrace that speed potential, those different offerings that match to the type of customer we're looking at. And again, we can't be everything to everybody, but I do believe we end up doing that in areas like in our cooler doors, where we have 20 cooler doors for cold packaged beverage, but we'll only offer one coffee program. So I think sometimes when it comes to speed, our focus or maybe our attention is in the wrong place. Right, wrong, or indifferent, Europe's about food. You want a cold sandwich, you can get a cold sandwich. You want to buy some meat and your own fresh bread and make your own sandwich, you can do that. And if you want to wait in line and get already a prepared sandwich, you can do that. Or if you want to wait in line and have your own sandwich made, you can do that. And I think that those types of offerings, those multiple different options that you're providing the customer, lead to higher conversion rates and higher share of dollars related to speed.
Okay. Before I let you go, is there like one thing that you thought was the coolest that you've been telling everyone about?
I guess it would be that I'm just always surprised that you can have like fresh bread right out there for everyone to grab. And we just, again, I know we have rules and regulations, but we'd be worried about people sneezing on it or people touching it or whatever it might be. And that's just not the case. And I just think it's so cool when you walk in, you've seen the pictures, and they have these amazing pastries, and you just grab them. You don't have to ask for anybody. You just grab it and grab your coffee, and off you go. I'm always super impressed with that. To this day, I just wish we could do more of that in our stores. We do it with vegetables in our stores, like a Whole Food, as you referenced, and that look. Yeah. We do it with our fruits and things like that. So I think we do have the ability to do some of that. But yeah, I think the more things that we can make self-service, and I've talked about this in the past as well, I think will benefit our industry. And I think that's a speed issue as well. The more stuff we can eliminate the human piece of and let the customer get it on his or her on their own time at their own speed, I think the more beneficial we are for it.
All right. Thanks, Darren. Made me hungry. All right. Thanks for listening to today's episode of The Truck Stops Here. You can find us online at natso.com/podcast. If you have any questions or you want to see more pictures of food, reach out to me at editor@natso.com. Hi, Darren.
Bye, Amy.
The Truck Stops Here was brought to you by NATSO, the association representing truck stops and travel centers. Visit natso.com for more information.